Thank you. I think we go back to 2017. I'm pretty proud to be part of that cohort that was there. And I think what we can tell is that's a younger me. The lights are on at the end of the night. There's a slightly glazed look in the eyes. So this was very much a moment of celebration back then. And I've been in the industry a few years before this, and I think what had happened was I'd come from a product design background, kind of exciting, cool consumer product design. On the left there, that's me in the back at Brunel University. And in my first day in lighting, I was handed that dial on the left and told to estimate the remaining life of incandescent lamps based on forward voltage. I kind of went from this kind of very cool and exciting thing to something that was very manual. And when you're looking back at my kind of time in lighting, the thing that stands out, I think a good benchmark is the projects that you worked on. And I've been really fortunate to work on a number of really great projects, from opera houses and office refits to some lovely hotels. That one on the left in particular was a real bugger because it's the first time we ever used LED. And the only circuit that didn't dim properly was the LED. I think there's a time and a place that we could all use a lot of AR111 halogens and cold cathode, and the world would be much simpler. But there's a good spread of projects here, and I think what happens is the projects end up with often lots of lovely good photos, and I'm not going to take credit for those, but the work that goes into them results in that. But it's not all good times. You know, you end up doing the all-nighters and spending time in the middle of the night in Sharon's trough of despair, wondering what you've based your life on. I think you can look at my face there. There's nothing says despair more than the look on my face. Or turning up for a mock-up and the contractor has brought entirely the wrong piece of a kit and equipment, and you're still expected to justify the design. We've also turned up to sites and been expected to commission a facade behind a load of tarpaulin and scaffolding, and no one really grasped the challenge that would present. And equally, this is me stuck on a rooftop ledge. Not the first time I was locked out on a rooftop for not noticing where the fire doors were. And then you get to go to site and you get to do the fun stuff, and you say fun, but that's me standing on a rooftop in the rain at midnight, trying to focus a luminaire with a contractor who, quite frankly, didn't want to be there. And then possibly the worst thing that's happened, we spent 2 evenings doing a set of benchmark photography, and it was freezing cold, and I didn't realize I had some weird exposure setting on my phone, and we had a whole evening's worth of photography absolutely ruined. But with those projects comes the idea of place, and I think I've dropped a smattering of pins across there, and every one of those pins is a place that I've got to travel around the world because of lighting. And that's been a really sort of fortunate and luxury thing to do, because you get to see places that you wouldn't otherwise be able to see. Sometimes it's behind the scenes, and I think on the right, it looks like I'm sort of endorsing 600 by 600 panels, but this was a few years ago in a kind of off-grid IoT facility before IoT was a thing, and we were testing sensors and automated and devices. On your right is I got a chance to go to Colombo in Sri Lanka, which is an amazing place, and just wander along at sunrise watching whales off the coast. I've stood centre stage in the middle of the opera house in Dubai, and granted I was looking out at the reg seating through the scaffold, but when I was there, it kind of really dawned on me that this was a view that very few people were ever going to get to see. And those of you that have been to a couple of PLDC events probably saw this view, getting kind of unfettered access to the Sistine Chapel without having to queue. And then probably one of my massive highlights was earlier this summer, getting to go and spend the night in the desert in a dark sky reserve and kind of benchmark things and help them write a set of lighting guidance. Beautiful experience, kind of absolutely astonishing, but really tempered by not trying to get bitten by scorpions and snakes for about 8 hours whilst you're there taking measurements. And I think Marcy's here. This is your quote from How to Be Brilliant a couple of weeks ago. And you were talking about legacy. And when I was looking back on my career, one of these amazing things that I thought about was legacy, kind of what's there. And it's about ensuring the path that you've won has a chance for the future. And it's about how people can lift you up with that. And this is me 10 or 11 years ago when I was thrown in at the deep end to do kind of my very first public speaking in lighting. The challenge was I wasn't supposed to be there. My old boss, who was an incredible mentor to me, had woken up the day before and completely lost his voice. And he said, don't worry, I've emailed the organisers. They've allowed you to give my presentation for me. So I'm thinking, right, lovely, kind, nice one. And about 24 hours before, he hands me 4 slides, one of which was the cover, and didn't sort of fathom the understanding that I was going to have an issue turning this into a 20-minute presentation. So I had a lot of stress, a lot of nerves trying to put together, about 26 or 7 hours without sleep. I obviously didn't have a photo of that time because it was very distressing, but I plugged all my emotions in to ChatGPT and asked it to pull together an image of a lonely lighting designer sitting in a hotel room in Dubai working on a PowerPoint presentation. And this is what it churned out. And I think, it's not me, obviously, but the sentiment is there. But part of the success of that talk was Martin Valentine took me aside. He was going to introduce me on stage, and he gave me a little pep talk. And he won't remember that, but it stuck with me for so long. And it made me realize that what makes our industry, beyond the projects, beyond the places, is the people. We have quite a small industry, but it is an absolutely lovely industry to be a part of. And I could have filled 20 slides with all of people and these amazing experiences that I've been really fortunate to be a part of. I think part of that is don't just exist in the lighting industry. Go out your way to be a part of it, and you'll have all these incredible, amazing experiences. And I think, hands up, who remembers the family tree? Right, we've found the age split in the room, perfect. We're probably overdue for another one, but I think this absolutely boils down to what it is. We have an incredible industry made up of incredible people, and the vast majority of it, like Dan mentioned it, Sharon mentioned it, it's all about the people. And so what I kind of want to just leave with this kind of slightly underwhelming slide, but a very poignant quote, is that I implore all of you, don't just exist in the lighting industry, be a part of it, and it will be a better place because of it. Thank you.
Way to finish. Thank you.